Streaming. Live. Fire.
My goodness, feast your eyes on those knockers, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Terrificon 2026 from the Friday show. I'm your host, Thomas Pimentel, here with Lightning Luke Chapdelaine. Here's Eli Ellis from E3 Graphic Design.
How we doing?
We're doing good, buddy. We're going to be here all weekend. We got Fritz in the booth, Caitlin Williams in the booth, and we have a special guest from
Agents of Slabs.
Agents of Slab. All right.
And we got a dead mic again.
Oh,
We're good.
That's
We're
okay.
fine.
We got it live. Here we go.
1 2 1 2.
There we go.
There
We're back in
we
There it
business.
is. Agents of Slabs. That's what I'm representing today. We're a signature service for witnessing signatures for CGC, that kind of stuff. We do mainly facilitation, pressing, and that's really what we do. And that's the services we provide for our customers. Just to give you an insight, pressing typically increases the value of a book. Not always, depending on how badly damaged it is or what's wrong with it, but it's a service that's provided to increase the value of the book, to add to the signature and all that other great stuff. So that way somebody can put it into their collection, maybe get a good ROI on it, and
return
sell
on
it.
investment for
Yep,
all you
return on
dummies at home.
investment. Yep. And maybe sell it down the future or pass it on to their kids. Some people just have amazing collections. They've stored them away for years and never touched them. And our job is to get them up and pretty and, graded and slabbed and sent back to them so that way they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, how many people have had the sob stories of their comics were in the basement and it got flooded, or
or fire. That happened to me. A fire happened to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
or their mother
Slight
sold their
boxing around the
comics,
edges.
gave those away.
Yep.
Yep.
Threw them out.
Ooh, yep. You hate to see it. Can you
So-
also introduce yourself and how long you've been doing this?
My name is Jonathan Roa. Everybody calls me John. I've been doing this for the last 5-6 years now.
Solid. What do you
yeah.
think's the most impressive comic that you have seen?
The most impressive comic I've seen, I've seen an Action One. I've seen Detective 27. Those are first appearances of Batman, Superman, stuff like that. So really cool stuff. I've come across it just, people bring in all kinds of crazy stuff and you never know what you're going to see. You never know, because like some guy finds stuff in an attic or finds it in a basement or at a crawl, estate sales, whatever. And then they bring them to you and you're just like, wow, I can't believe you have this. This is incredible.
So, John, let me give you a scenario. Somebody comes to you with comics that are super rare,
Sure.
and they're not. When you meet them, you know that they're not particularly a comic collector,
Sure.
right? And they got some really rare books that like serious collectors have, and they say, "Hey, how much can I get for these?" What's your first reaction to something like that?
Well, my first reaction is to find out if they know what they have,
Okay.
to see if they have an understanding of what they have. So for example, when I did see the Detective 27, the gentleman knew what he had. He knew it was a high value book. He knew that it was going for a decent amount of money. He just didn't know what grade it was in. He didn't know, how to go about getting it graded or any of that kind of stuff. And that's where we come in and we give them all the information that they need. Like we tell them what resources to use, like Key Collector or, a grade point analysis, GPA, which is will tell you the price of a book once it's graded and what it sold for, and it keeps a records of what those prices were. And it gives you a 90-day average, 60-day average, all that great stuff. So you can really find that information useful. Then what we typically do is like we tell them, hey, listen, we think that this book is in this condition and the last sale for something in that condition is worth X amount of dollars. And then from there, we tell them, well, we're going to insure it for that and then send it to CGC to get graded and all that great stuff. So that's what, we would typically do, is see where their knowledge is, see how much we can improve that knowledge, and how much we can facilitate, and maybe even making a sale or whatever the case may be.
So at any time in that process, do you have to like liaise with the actual comic book companies?
No, not at all. Because at this point in time, it's on third party market. So from there, it's free game.
Okay.
Whatever somebody wants to charge is whatever somebody wants to charge. Whatever, the statuses of the book, whether that's, beat up or new or whatever the condition is, that's all relative to the new owner. That person now has sole custody of that book. There is no, talking to DC or Marvel and saying, hey, I bought this book back when, and now it's worth, whatever. So should I sell it? Or there's no need for any of that. So third party market, it's kind of like a used car.
I get it. Are there ever any books that those companies are looking for to get back? Like, are there any like,
I'm sure
are there
there
any
would
like
be.
white rhinos out there that like
I
people
mean,
like, if they show up, we got to get them back or put them in a museum or something?
I'm sure some of these books they would definitely like to have in a museum somewhere for sure. I just don't know if the collectors and the owners of these books would be, partial to either loaning it to a museum or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, for sure that these books are out there and people buy them. I mean, I've seen stuff where somebody's been looking for this specific book that they colored in as a kid,
Holy hell.
and they really want this book back. It was a first print TMNT, and he really wants to find the book and buy it back.
Wow.
But who knows where it ended up at this point? It's either thrown out or somebody's collection, or it could be anywhere at this point because it was colored in. And if you know anything about the TMNT first print, they were in black and white. And so he was gifted it, or not gifted it, but he was loaned it as a friend. I mean, as a child, I should say, excuse me. And he ended up coloring in a bunch of pages, and he fell in love with the book. And his uncle, of course, never loaned him another book,
Yeah.
especially a TMNT.
Yeah. That guy's crushed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of the turtles, and I wanted to get back to the slabbing process with you because
Sure.
it's really a fascinating thing because obviously you buy some used comics and obviously they could have rolled either over time or just from the original printing. But with TMNT, it's interesting you bring that up because I bought some comics off of a fellow on the New Hampshire seacoast, and he told me that in probably 85, 86, he was at a party when Eastman and Laird were putting out the first few comics.
Right.
So that he was in Dover, and they were they signed like original first pressings of their comics in 1985. However, when this guy sent it to be graded, it was given back to him with a very low grade because it was signed.
Okay. Well,
Which was really weird because he also mentioned that there was a time where the same grading company, you could pay Eastman and Laird $150 to sign your comic, and then you would get that same comic back with a high grade. And we were like, that sounds like a conflict of interest.
yeah, I mean, back in the early days of grading, there was a lot of weird practices, I guess, going on because they were still trying to figure out the terrain
Yeah.
and navigate the whole grading process. What they used to do, I don't know how long ago he got that graded, but what they used to do is give a green label, and then they would put on the green label. It was, signed by so and such and such in the cover. Or wherever it was signed. And then what would end up happening is it would just kind of be like written off. Like they wouldn't even bother, counting it as a legit signature because they didn't have an authentication and verification service at the time.
That does
to-
make sense considering, it was
grade-
at the
yeah.
launch party.
Yeah. So now all that stuff is now CGC acquired JSA. They have a great history of, authenticating signatures. It's now part of their service. You can get a yellow label with a black stripe on it that says it's been authenticated and it is an original signature.
That's interesting.
So that's some of the stuff you can do now. Yeah, and it just the process is kind of difficult if you're new to it, but once you get it down, it's very, very simple and easy. It's just getting through the processes and learning the curve, but it's very simple. I learned it in a matter of 10, 15 minutes the first time I picked it up. So it just takes a little bit of a learning curve, and you can't get frustrated or over like annoyed or anything with it. You just got to kind of go at it and plug it away. And it is some information that you have to know, like the year and date that the book came out and that kind of stuff, what printing it is. You have to know what variant it is. Those kind of informations would definitely benefit especially when using the portal and logging in this information.
What would you say is someone new to this, what would you say is the most beneficial piece of information that you could give them?
I would say if you're going to collect the way I do it, I would say do it the way I do it. Not trying to discourage anyone from collecting what they love, because that's another correct way to do it. But I collect for investment. So I look at what investment opportunity is there to be had with this book. Can I buy it? Can I press it and increase the value with a press? Now, can I get it signed? And once it's signed, what's the value on that? Because in the long term, in another 20, 30 years from now, forgive me for saying this, but some of these people won't be with us anymore. And that is a big key factor in the investment part of it, because you can have a signature that's on the book that's going to increase the value, and that person's no longer here with us, and it just is a tremendous key. Like, look, I got this signature from this guy so long ago, and now he's no longer with us, and it's just one of those things that kind of make you feel warm and fuzzy. Like, look what I got. You know what I mean?
Yep. Not on the comic front, but Kevin Conroy was here
Sure.
a few years back. I actually had the opportunity I volunteered to work
Kill
with
him.
Yes, Luke killed him.
Work with him, and I brought my Batarang from the collector's edition of the original Arkham Asylum game. Got it signed by him. 3 months later, he passed.
Right.
And
So
that's not anything that I'm going to give up. That's mine. but-
Exactly. My point, that's one of my key points there, is that now look at what you have. You have a collector's item that no one ever else will have, because he's no longer around to, provide his signature and meet the fans and do all that great stuff that these guys do. And I know it's kind of, stressful for these people, because you're meeting so many people. You're constantly signing something. You're constantly doing something, either a sketch or whatever. But, they do it for the fans. And that's why the fans support them so much.
Yep.
Because of that love, that community, that mutual respect for one another. It's just a big part of what a comic convention is.
What got you into comics?
As a kid, I grew up watching, a lot of 90s cartoons, because I was born in the 80s, but I was raised in the 90s. And I remember Spider-Man was on TV, X-Men was on TV, all that great stuff. I had all the toys and all that stuff. And then I picked up a comic, and I was like, wow, this is actually a really good story. Let me, and the artwork was phenomenal. So I'm like, let me continue to see where this goes. And the more I read and the more stories came out and everything got better and more, intricate and detailed, and the styles evolved, and all this great stuff was just happening around comics. And it's hard not to want to be a part of it, especially when you see what they're doing with all these movies, and cartoons, and how they're like Invincible, for the perfect example.
Oh.
What a great comic.
Love
and
it.
then the cartoon is just phenomenal. Like, it's so bloody, it's so like messed up, and that's what makes a good comic and is something that comes from someone's imagination that you would have never even thought of. You know?
I want to read the Invincible graphic novels, but because I was first introduced to the show, I want to go through that first and then get around to those. But I was told like, oh yeah, Invincible. It's like, in an adult like comic show, and I was like watching the first episode, going through, and I was like, I thought they said this was gonna be like more serious. Oh, there it is. And
Yeah.
over there, and over there, and over there.
Yep.
Definitely appreciate that. But
Punching holes in people.
oh
Yeah, for sure.
it was brutal. Fritz, I know you said you had some more questions about slabbing that you want to get into. What's on your mind?
Slab away, Chris.
Slab away. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about the slabbing process. Another thing
Sure.
about the grading process is I work in an antique shop, and I'm also a dealer in one. I deal in comics and records and video games and whatnot.
Drugs.
Yeah, right. So, but one of the things
We don't talk about that.
One of the things we were finding, especially during the COVID times, was there were a lot of people that were at home. They didn't have a lot to do. They couldn't go anywhere, and they started sending like so many comics off to be graded. And we were hearing rumors about baseball cards and comics that people were literally being told it was probably going to take 2 years for the process. And we even heard that some of the grading companies maybe even like raised their fees to deter people from sending things in because they were so inundated with work.
As far as the fees going up, I don't recall, but I do know that the lead time for a comic did jump up quite a bit. It went from like 2 or 3 months to about a year.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard stories of people having it even longer, having, submitted something and it taking even longer than a year. I don't know because I wasn't submitting at that time. I was mostly buying, which was kind of foolish. I should have been selling.
That's true. So let's talk about the slabbing process.
Sure.
What does that entail? I mean, the pressing process sounds very interesting. I've watched some YouTube videos. I've watched videos where they recommend, like, say, the Amazing Spider-Man wedding issue of like maybe trying to use like an eraser to get the white cover really nice and white.
Right.
And I'm just like, that seems really scary.
You use a high polymer eraser and you kind of touch the surface of the book. You don't want to do anything too hard. You go very extremely light so that way you don't remove any color from the book, because you can damage the book and you can cause lightening to colors. So what we typically do is we give it a light dry clean with a cotton round, take off any surface debris, dirt, grime, fingerprints, oil, from your fingers. And then from there, we'd give it a what we consider as part of the dry clean, which is the eraser, the high polymer eraser. And then from there, depending on what needs to get meticulously put back into place, we do that. If nothing requires detail like stain removal or, staple, anything with the staples, like you have a tear in one of the pages and you got to open up a staple and you got to put it back into place, we can do that. There's other things we can do too. We can make books complete. We can marry covers. We can do all that great stuff. So the point of doing that, though, let me just preface that with this. The point of doing that, though, is not to try to fool anyone. We're not trying to, scam CGC or make someone believe that now they're buying a book that's 100% original or never had any work done to it or anything like that. The point of doing it is to restore the book to its integrity before any of these things happen. And that's the whole point of doing that. It's just to restore the book, have it present well, put it in a collection, and, hopefully in a few years you get some good money for it or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it is so hard because I know white pages is like a big deal in terms of the grading process, but it's like, I remember when I was buying comics as a teenager, it was like, sometimes I would pick up 3 or 4 copies off the newsstand to try to get the one that had the nicest looking pages and nicest looking printing. And but it's just like, in many ways it's a crapshoot. You get what you get. I mean, sometimes the comic could be not cut correctly when it was printed and binded.
Yep.
And you just, you're stuck with what you've got. I mean, there's been a few times where I've purchased comics and I've tried to at least trim some of the bad printing away before I bagged and boarded it. But it was like, you get, unfortunately, you get what you get sometimes. There's no fixing it if it came that way originally from the printer.
And the other part about that is third-party buying. When you buy third-party, it's it can, there's defects in the book sometimes. You have spine ticks, spine stress, you have finger bends, you have cockling, and all these other defects that can be in a book. Now, the whole point of pressing is to minimize or reduce or completely remove all of those defects. Now, there's not much you can do about spine ticks, but you can flatten them and make them look nicer to present a better book. Now, that's something that can be done. And like I said, there's other things that can be done to books. There's even detergents and stuff you can use on papers to try to, bring back the life and the color, to get rid of the staining and all that kinds of stuff like that. That's something I don't do, though. I don't do anything with detergents. I'm looking into it because that's something I would definitely like to provide.
It sounds terrifying.
It can be. I mean, you just got to be careful and know what you're doing. You got to take your time and go slow, and that's really what it is. You got to, because, for example, if you give me $1 book, I'm going to treat it like a $20,000 book because it's not mine. That's number one. Number two is, that's your book. You have whatever value you have into it. You might have paid $50 for it. I don't know, and the goal for me is not to cause any further damage. I'm trying to get you your book back in its original condition you gave it to me in, as better looking shape than what you gave me. So that way, when you do send it into CGC or you do get it signed or whatever, you get it back and you're like, oh, wow, this is even better than I expected, which it happens quite frequently. There's been very few times, which it does happen, but I can probably say less than 5 times where I've gotten a book back for a customer and the customer was like, oh, the grade went down, or it just did, whatever the case was. But it's very rare, very, very, very rare. Most of the time it goes up.
John, where are you guys based?
Well, the company's based out of Florida.
Okay.
Orlando, Florida. But I live in New York City. I live in Queens, and I partnered up with them with Agents of Slabs. I have my own little comic stuff going on. It's called Comics to Customs. I do sales and all kinds of my own stuff like that, my own pressing. If you want to send it directly to me to press, you can find me at Comics to Customs on Instagram and send me a message. We do whatever you need. I can probably do it. There's not much that I can't do. And yeah, that's mainly how it works.
Awesome. We got to start wrapping up, John. Can you do a final reintro of yourself, who you're here with?
Sure. My name is Jonathan Roa. I'm with Agents of Slabs out in Tampa, Florida, or Orlando area. And we're here just getting signatures and facilitating and encasing some books.
All right.
And
Awesome.
you're at booth
John,
355, right?
One question, John, before you go. If you could give advice to your 10-year-old self, what would it be?
Buy every first appearance that ever comes out right off the rack. That's what I would tell myself.
All right. And buy Apple stock.
Yeah, right? Yeah, there you go. Buy Apple stock. Invest in Google.
All right. Thanks, John, for having you on. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, John.
All right. All right. That's it for the latest episode of the Take 12 podcast, live from the floor of Terrificon 2026. Tom Pimentel, Luke Chapdelaine, Fritz Williams, Caitlin Williams. That's a wrap.